watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto, Ontario. I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. This year, Muslim Social Services Waterloo region turns 15. They had a celebration on the weekend. We will talk to the founder, Dr. IDRISA PANDIT, and the executive director, DUAA AL-AGHAR, after the news. But here are some headlines. Indigenous delegation asks for extradition of former priest. Series of changes to take place after Queen's death. 15 years since the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. UN expert says Afghanistan's human rights crisis leading to authoritarianism. And now the details. An Inuit delegation is in Paris, France, seeking the extradition of former priest Johannes Revoire to Canada to face sexual abuse charges. Revoire faces several charges of sexual abuse committed during his work in Nunavut communities in the 1960s and 1970s. Revoire returned to France in the early 1990s before he could be tried for his charges. The RCMP confirmed this March that several more charges were laid against him. One of the delegates, whose father died in 2012, alleges that Revoire sexually abused his father in Nunavut. The delegates demand justice for all victims. In an interview with a media outlet in July, Revoire has denied all charges. With King Charles III's accession to the throne last week, a number of important changes are being made to official governance documents in Canada. The first of these was a proclamation this past weekend proclaiming King Charles III Canada's new head of state. New Canadians have already begun pledging allegiance to King Charles in the Oath of Citizenship. When we sing the national anthem, we will chant, "God Save the King." Some of these changes will take more time to implement, such as on passports, coins, and paper money bills. The Queen's portrait in government offices will gradually be replaced. Yesterday marked the 15th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, and Mark Miller, Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, issued a statement saying that the declaration acts as an international framework to protect the rights of Indigenous peoples. According to a statement by the First Nations Summit, the adoption of the UN Declaration was a result of relentless efforts of Indigenous peoples from all parts of the world for 2 decades. They welcomed Canada's adoption of the declaration last year as law, saying it should act as a solid foundation for revised and strengthened relations between First Nations and governments. Afghanistan is facing a deepening human rights crisis under Taliban rule, leading to authoritarianism, a UN expert warns. UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Afghanistan, Richard Bennett, catalogues in his first report to the Human Rights Council human rights abuses under the Taliban since it seized control of the country in August 2021. These include a severe rollback of the rights of women and girls, attacks on minorities, including Hazara Shia, and clamp down on critics and media. The report also highlights revenge killings, lack of journalistic freedom, and the judicial system losing its independence. And that's it for the news. Muslim Social Services in the Waterloo region has turned 15. They hosted a 15th anniversary celebration this past weekend. To talk to us about the event and their services, we are joined by founder Dr. IDRISA PANDIT and executive director DUAA AL-AGHAR. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.
Dr. IDRISA, when you founded the organization, did you ever think you'd see a 15th anniversary celebration?
No, I didn't. Alhamdulillah, we're here. In spite of all the odds and challenges that we've had, we've made it to year 15.
Tell us about the reason that you wanted to make this organization exist.
I moved to the Waterloo region in 2005 from the United States, and I've been quite active in various campus organizations and other activities in different masajids and so on. And when I arrived here, I saw there was absolutely nothing available for the Muslim community, and there were there was such a need for something spiritually and culturally sensitive, both in terms of the social services and counseling. So that's what prompted it, and also a lot of influx of newcomer refugees who needed a place where they could feel at home and could, reach out for services that were really meeting their particular needs. So that's really the reason why we started, in a sense.
And when you say nothing, were there no mosques, or there were mosques, but they were just prayer halls and not doing other things?
Absolutely right. Yes, there were mosques that were just functioning as prayer halls. In fact, when I arrived in Waterloo, there wasn't even a masjid school, and that was the first thing that I did, which surprised me because I had worked with children and youth, in the United States for a long time, and I was very surprised. And also, there were no real networks for women. So we started as a network for women, but soon expanded, to be more inclusive, because we wanted to set an example for the Muslim community that inclusivity means involving every member of the community, unlike some of the masajid spaces that were exclusively male.
Maybe we'll have time to get into that topic later, but let's bring in the Executive Director, DUAA AL-AGHAR. Dr. Idrissa just talked about inclusivity, and I noticed that on your board you have non-Muslims. Is it unusual, or how did a non-Muslim react to being asked to be on the board of a Muslim social service organization?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. Yes, Muslim Social Services serves Muslims and non-Muslims. And because they see the impact that we have in the community, this is why they join our board. And also we serve a lot of non-Muslims by provide sensitive and culturally counseling services to them. So our impact encourage people from other faiths to join the board and join our programs.
Tell us a little bit about the services that you are providing then.
Okay, so we, as I mentioned, Muslim Social Services is a non-profit organization who provide spiritually and culturally sensitive counselings to Muslims and non-Muslims in the Waterloo region. We also provide a lot of programs for youth, children, women, men, and seniors in the community, because we try to build a community where they feel inclusive and they feel belonging. So this is why we try to foster a healthy, inclusive environment for everyone who's joining Muslim Social Services.
Tell us about the difference it makes to have a culturally sensitive approach to helping someone. How does that really help?
Yeah, so for example, if you are coming from a war and trauma, you face a lot of trauma, and you come to seeking counseling to somebody who doesn't know what does it mean, going through war. So this is, it makes a big difference. Besides, when somebody talks the same language, also it makes difference in providing counseling.
I saw on the website you have testimonials from different people in the community, and also, I guess, supporters around from different faith groups and different organizations. And one of them was a testimonial for a police officer about the assistance you provided on domestic violence cases. Dr. Idrissa, can you tell us a little bit about why you might have got involved in this? It's a very sensitive topic in the Muslim community.
Thank you for that. You asked the question, why non-Muslims on our board? So our philosophy from the very get-go has been a very interdependent, cooperative philosophy of partnerships. In fact, I ran Muslim Social Services for the first 7-8 years with zero funding, and people didn't know that we had absolutely no staff, and we were doing our work because of these successful collaborations with community organizations, including the police and the domestic violence unit of the police and the sexual assault center. One of the key areas of our focus was domestic violence. So I've created a program called Safer Families. And that program was aimed at really training our local social service personnel, including the police, in the Islamic perspectives on family violence. So we conducted numerous workshops training both Muslim and non-Muslim social workers, police officers, other community organizations, and leaders from different sectors, including imams, which then also prompted us to encourage our imams, local imams, to go for formal training. I was involved in setting up another organization at Wilfrid Laurier University, particularly at Luther College, which is now the Glebe Center, which followed our model of spiritually and culturally sensitive counseling. And we supported them, by offering our services and sending our counselors to them until they got established, because it was such a need in the community.
So I just want to circle back to the domestic violence topic, because you said a few interesting things that could be probed. You said you do training on the Islamic perspective. So there are a lot of people in the wider community, even within the Muslim community, who think that men can beat their wives.
Yes.
So what is the Islamic perspective?
Well, absolutely the contrary. Islam is all about anti-oppression, and I would challenge every individual or anybody that claims that Islam somehow prescribes violence against any individual, particularly women. I would tend to disagree. From the Quranic perspective, I don't see any validity to that argument. And so we have used the Quran, really in our workshops, in creating educational resources and training both, as I said, Muslim and non-Muslim. And it's been interesting. You ask a very interesting question, because we've had imams in our training workshops who've said, this is how I grew up. This was culturally sanctioned. And, I really did not pay attention to, other ways of interpreting certain verses of the Quran that are quite controversial and have been used or abused, unfortunately, to silence and violate women's bodies. So I think that has been one of our great successes.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're almost out of time. Let's just give a space for DUAA to come in with a last word. What will be the next steps for your organization in the next 15 years?
Oh, there's a lot of things. Like, we will continue providing counseling, and we try to concentrate on programs to empower women and also men. Besides build resilience in youth and children, we will continue creating safer families through our outreach and build the bridges and the capacity in these kind of families. So this is what we are trying to continue our journey and build more relationships.
Thank you very much. Sorry to cut you. We're out of time, but thank you for joining us. We congratulate you. We hope we can talk to you on the 30th anniversary. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe, and God bless.